that many of us, we have not learned communication. We don't know communication. We know how to talk, but we have not learned communication. There are some religious rules in your head that is stopping you from doing many things you want to do. You are afraid of speaking your mind, and that's how you know that you have been captured. You know what is right. The person is doing what is wrong, but you can't tell him that what he's doing is wrong because either he's older than you or you are afraid that he has some anointing and blah, 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 blah. These are the issues. I think we all need healing because only a wholesome people can actually raise a wholesome generation. And we all need to get to that level. Good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Good afternoon if you're joining from the US or North America. Good evening if you're joining from other countries in Africa and Europe, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Fowowe, as I've been rightly introduced, and I'm just going to let you in on the 7 deadly killers of a child's potential. Now, I hope this helps you. You know, I love a statement that was made by Jim Morrison many years ago. I read it, and it says the most loving parents and relatives commit murder with smiles on their faces. They force us to destroy the person that we really are, a subtle kind of murder, that the most loving parent, right, they commit the greatest murder with smiles on their face. Not because they really want to kill you or they want to destroy you or you want to destroy your child. You know, it's because we were forced to destroy the person that we really are. So when you were born, your parents did not pay attention to who you should be, because in the different milestones and developmental stages in the life of a child, there are different roles that parents need to play. So for example, from ages 0 to 3, you are supposed to be a scout. Your job is to observe your child and spot the potential your child is exhibiting. But if you can't interpret correctly the potential your child is exhibiting, you're going to destroy the child. You know, but from ages 4 to 6, you are supposed to be a model. You model hard work, you model competence, you model excellence, you model the values you want a child to subscribe to, raise, because from ages 7 to 9, you are supposed to be an instructor. At that age, you aggressively instruct a child, you know, based on the potential he has shown that you have discovered. Now, if you can interpret accurately, you are going to damage your child. So, for example, if you grew up in Africa or Nigeria and you walked into your child's room at age 7, your daughter, and she's sleeping with her 2 legs to the wall, how are you going to interpret that? Many of us, based on the kind of upbringing we had, you would say maybe she has flown to the meeting of witches and wizards and what have you, right? But a lot of us do not know that your job is to fact find and look at everything from the standpoint of curiosity. When as a parent you are asking, what lesson can I learn here? What can I learn from what my child is doing? You are at a better position to understand what your child is doing and help your child grow in the way he should go. But if you are fond of taking position, everything is bad, everything that you don't understand, you take a position and you label your child, you're going to damage your child. Because from ages 10 to 12, you are supposed to be a friend. That is the age many parents lose their children. You are supposed to befriend your child, you know, get into their world, get into their secret life. They must be comfortable to open up their secrets to you. Because from ages 13 to 18, you are supposed to be your child's coach. At that age, you can no longer impose your will, you balance perspectives. You want to know what a child knows about a topic before you share your own. And you must be open-minded because your own way may not be the right way. As you have found right now, children are challenging what we have come to believe. There are things we couldn't ask questions about from the Bible, from the Quran, that our children are questioning us from. You know, and there's no hiding place. So you cannot slam it on them the way our parents, did for us. You need to be open-minded, right? Because from age 19, your parenting journey is over. You now become a technical advisor or a cheerleader. Now, having laid this foundation, a lot of us, if you don't understand these developmental stages and understand your role description, you are going to damage a child. So I'll just quickly run you through the 7 deadly killers of a child's potential. Number one is assumption. A lot of us, when you take a position without critically analyzing what your child is doing and accurately interpret. So you say to a child, stand up, and he sits. You say, stand up, and he sits. How do you interpret that? Many of you will say the child is disobedient, rebellious, and what have you. What if the child was absent-minded? What if he didn't even hear you? What if the child is wondering, why is my father commanding me like this? How come he's not speaking to the king in me, right? If you don't understand that, you will give your child a right and a fellowship. You know, you yell and shout and scream simply because you do not understand what your child is doing. For every negative trait you spot in your child, there's a corresponding positive intention that many parents never understand. So consistently, we assume the potential of a child. We assume a child's personality. We assume discipline. We trade punishment for discipline. So many of us punish our children and we think we discipline them. The word discipline is the word disciplina, is a Latin word which means instruction, correction, grooming, and discipleship, right? Within the ambits and the confines of discipline, there is no spanking, there is no shouting, there is no yelling, there is no tantrums, right? But there are two other similar words that many of us find ourselves doing. You have domestication, which is the Latin word domesticatus. From domesticatus is where you have tame and put under control. So when you say to your child, I'm going to put you under control, what you are saying is not that you're going to discipline your child. You don't want to disciple the child. You want to tame him. You want to domesticate him. The third word is the word punishment, which is the Latin word punire. Punire means to damage, to avenge. So many of you are avenging the pain in your childhood on your children, and you don't know. So when you assume, you know, what you think you understand by what a child is doing. Remember when you were a child, many of you as girls, by trying to talk to a boy on your street, your mother already assumed that you were pregnant. She assumed that the boy is already sleeping with you. And that was how many of us lost out from fantastic relationship. In fact, maybe some of you made mistakes right now and you are guiding your child jealously. You don't want your child to repeat the mistakes you made, forgetting that your child has his own journey, right? Our life is a best-selling movie. Every pain we have been through are the suspense in the movie. Many of us don't know how to articulate life like that, you know. So at the end of the day, we raise children who don't have a mind of their own. You know, consistently you're controlling them. Number two is arrogance. Arrogance is when you don't know and you are too proud to learn. Everywhere I have been to, I have asked parents how many of them have taken a course on parenting. Most of them have not, right? So how are you parenting? You are parenting by proxy. I've done all kinds of research. I have studied all kinds of models, the Jewish model, Japanese model, Chinese model. I have even gone into personalities. I have studied intensely how Bill Gates was raised, how Mark Zuckerberg was raised, how Elon Musk was raised. I wanted to see the intentionality in raising these icons, you know, and I found similarities, right? That principles are replicable if we understand these principles. So when we are arrogant, people just assume that because they conceive a child and they have become parents, or because they donate semen, or because they are paying school fees, giving shelter, you have become a parent. No, the word parenting is the one that can bring forth the potential of a child and bring it to maximal effect in a way that the child becomes the best version of himself and is able to solve the problem for which he was created to solve in service to God and humanity. Which means the goal of parenting is not for your child to become like you. The goal of parenting is for your child to become the best version of himself and for you to release him, which a lot of mothers and fathers are not able to do. There's a point you've got to release your child, which is what the Jews call the bat mitzvah, where they bring the child to the community and lay hands and say, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well placed. I have properly groomed him. Many of us don't have a script and we're not even willing to learn. So parenting, you know, is a script that you must be ready to run. In fact, what I advocate right now is that everybody must learn to create their own village where 10 parents can come together in a clannish setup and raise their children together, because the parenting journey in the next 10 years is a tribal agenda and tribal you know, war. So any child who is not entrenched in an ideology that is superior to what is being confronted will be totally stolen, you know. So we need to understand that you need to take courses. I have quite a number of courses on my website that you can take on parenting that can help you. Number three is personal pain. When you fail to deal with your personal pain and frustration, you're trying to get the best out of a child, right? So many of us, we can't stand the play of our children. Your child excitement remind you of your own pain, while you mark his free spirit as unseriousness. You know, many of you, you see your children play around and you say to them, is this how you need to be serious? You need to be serious. That was what they told you. You be serious from primary school to secondary school to college. Be serious. You have become serious. That play has been taken away from your life. With your seriousness, who have you become? You are not Mark Zuckerberg. You are not Bill Gates. What have you become? What's your position of influence in the global scheme of things? You are not even featuring, but you are repeating the same templates on your child. You need to calm down and learn to play. Play is part of life. As a matter of fact, if you check the origin of school, right, what we call lecture is originally a school is a place of leisure based on the etymology of school. So it's a place where you learn to go and play. Many of the things we can remember, we learn them through play. So that's why I say that the problem of our world is an adult, right? If you stretch the word adult, you'll find adultery and adulteration. I say that humorously. The solution is a child. All a child wants to do is play. So when your personal pain, you have not dealt with it, you project it on your child and you frustrate your child. So you look at what you couldn't get and you use that to talk to your child and you begin to mess up the child. His esteem is being destroyed by you and you are not aware. So you say, this child is not looking like me. You are not behaving like your mother. The child should not behave like you or your or the mother. If your life has become absolutely inspiring, you won't even beg your child to become like you. Your child doesn't want to become like you. Let him become the future he wants to become. Let him become the best version of himself. So personal pain is number 3. Number 4, lack of unified template, united template. When parents don't, one person will sabotage parenting. So you from different families, there is a way you want to raise a child. There's a way your wife wants to raise a child. If you don't harmonize your curriculum and your template, you are going to damage a child. So daddy is labor, mommy is conservative, right? So when the child wants to get away with anything, maybe he will go to labor, and then you know, daddy, he knows that daddy is wicked, daddy is conservative, mom is liberal, you know, and all those kind of things. So consistently, the two of you need to sit down and ask yourself, what is the best way to raise this child based on the potential it's showing? No two children are the same. Your child is like a seed. You need to spot the intrinsic nature of the seed. You need to ask for the soil requirement of the seed. What is the right environment for the seed? What is the perceptual code of the seed? These are critical questions you need to ask before you now script can help your child become the best version of himself. So when you don't have a united template, and it starts from when you don't have a family vision. If you don't have a family vision, the two of you will mean well, but you will sabotage yourself. Your family vision, your family values, the DNA creed of your family, the DNA code of your family, the family ideology, and the legends of your family. These are critical areas every parent needs to pay attention to, including your family constitution. Now, I have a course on my website, and if you go to fowowe.com/courses, you will find family governance. It's a course you need to take that can help you solve this particular problem on creating family governance, right? Number 5 is limited exposure and close-mindedness. A lot of us don't know as parents, you are like the aquarium. Your child is a shark. The shark cannot outgrow the aquarium. The greatness of many of our children is being stifled by your limited exposure and closed-mindedness, right? So I'll explain this to you. When I ask parents, sometimes, you know, what kind of children do they want to raise? They tell me they want to raise a godly child. Then I ask them, who is a godly child? They'll tell me a godly child, you know, he must be gentle, he must be quiet, he must be prayerful, he must be loving, and all those kind of religious things that we talk about. Then I ask, can you define a godly child? Then they tell me a godly child is the child that looks like God. Then I ask them, can you tell me who God is, the attributes of God? Then they mention omniscience, omnipotent, omnipresent, sovereign, creator, and blah, blah, blah. Then I ask, why is what you are telling about God different from what you are talking about a godly child? Then they say, but a child cannot be omnipresent. As I say, who? They say a child can't be omnipresent. Then I ask, is there any child who has created any product on this planet that has gone all over the world? Then they realize that Coca-Cola is omnipresent. They realize that Mark Zuckerberg is omnipresent with Facebook. Bill Gates is omnipresent with Microsoft. Then they begin to mention products that have gone all over the world. So I said to them, if you don't believe that your child cannot be omnipresent with his invention, the potential of your child is at risk under you because of your closed-mindedness and because of your lack of exposure. In fact, I found out in the template that was used to raise Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and quite a number of these guys, that many of their parents has a heritage of exposure, right? That you can misinterpret. Take, for instance, if you live in Nigeria and you believe so much in religion and you think that science is anti-religion, if your child begins to manifest science aptitude, you are going to stifle his potential and think that he wants to go away from God, right? So many of us, our limited exposure and close-mindedness is messing up the sanity of our children. We judge things based on right and wrong, up and down. Life is beyond that. There is a lot more that you don't even understand, that you have not seen before, right? There are expressions of God that has never been found, that our children are going to manifest. And many times, the enemies of the new move of God are the custodians of the old move of God, because they think they understand God. You don't understand God. The more you think you know of him, you don't know. So when it manifests in another way, if you can't pick it, you will miss it and you will stifle the potential of your child. Number 6 is comparison. When you begin to compare your child with another person, your child is not you, your child is not his mate. So don't compare one child with another. No two children are the same, right? So you need to understand that you can have 4 children and 4 different characters, 4 different personalities. You can have one who is an intimidating Homer. You can have creative, convertible, dependable truck, systematic Ford. Different styles of raising them, different communication clues, different ways of correcting them, of disciplining them. I mean, 2 totally different ways. So you can't compare. Every child is different. Every child is unique, which is why when I train schools and I ask the teachers, how many children do you have in your class? If they say 20 children, you have failed, because you can only have 1 child, right? Now, number 7 is the wrong environment. When the environment doesn't support the potential of your child, an environment will include the schools your children are going, the religion that you have imposed, or denominational doctrine that has been imposed on your child, the society your child is growing. These are environments that can stifle the potential of a child, right? I say it humorously that Jesus would have been killed if his parents didn't have common sense to relocate when his life was on the thread. The identity of your child is on the thread. An environment can mess up a child. Imagine you have a corn seed and you have gone to plant it in the clay soil because your clay is your favorite soil. It's going to be stunted growth or it will die. The same way, the potential of a child is environment sensitive. You can die if the right environment is not created. Environment can include your family structure. Where daddy and mommy are always arguing, the potential of a child can be messed up. Where daddy is beating mommy, the potential of a child can be messed up. Where daddy believes that only mommy can cook, daddy is unwilling to cook. Daddy believes that mommy is a slave and blah, blah, blah. The potential of a child can be messed up because your children learn from observation, right? There are so many things your child is learning from you, right? So if you don't create an environment of love, if you are a man, your children can't question you, you are going to destroy a child. Because if your child has been silenced, his capacity to question convention will be taken away. And once that is taken away, a child is damaged already, because it then means he can't question status quo. And if a child cannot question status quo, he cannot innovate, because you need to question the present for you to create the future. So if your children cannot question you, there is no way they can question the environment. And once they can't question the environment, they will become tame. So you need to understand that these are 7 things that can destroy the potential of a child, deadly killers, and all of the 7 are in your hand. So if you don't work on yourself in the quadrant of parenting, you have the seed owner, which is God, you have the seed, which is the child, you have the seed environment, and you have the seed handler. The greatest threat to the sanity of a child is the seed handler and the seed environment. And you are the seed handler, and you are the one creating the environment. If the seed handler is right, if the environment is right, a child will naturally grow. Wherein, when the right seed meets with the right soil in the right season, bountiful harvest is inevitable. So parenting must start with you. You are the factor. You need to heal from your pain. You need to break away your frame and embrace new methodology that can power the potential of your child and release a global icon in your child. Let me stop here so that I can take questions. I hope this has helped you out there. Thank you very much, Aaron, for having me.
Wow. Wow. I can tell we're about to have an explosive time. All right, guys, I've just put in there, type in your questions and I would ask them. Type in your questions and I would ask them. This is your opportunity. Somebody said they need all the men here. We also need all the women here. It's not just the men. All right, so let's go to, thank you so much for that. So thank you so much for that. Let's go to, how have we come to that decision on what is not good parenting? What exactly is the benchmark? Who writes these rules on what is good or bad parenting? Don't you think it's subjective?
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Well, the template, parenting is a word. And when you want to understand the meaning of the word, you need to check the etymology of the word. That was the first time the word was used. If you check the etymology, it will give you a clue to the origin of the word and when it was used. So the origin of parenting is the bring forth, basically, the person who can bring forth. So you cannot manufacture your own ideology. Success is measured by how your child is able to become the best version of himself. Many of us in Africa, for example, we grew up with low self-esteem because our parents ensured that we have low self-esteem because we couldn't express our mind. They didn't know the milestones. They didn't know the developmental stages. They just slapped us into the community and we're doing all kinds of things that were not supposed to be done. We didn't know the rules. They slapped us for what we didn't know about, beat us for being children, for spilling water and all of you. Right. Now, studies have been made over time. So what I have done, and with all the courses we have created, we begin to look for people who have successfully raised icons to say, can we begin to ask questions? And I must tell you, many of them, by the time you first interview them, they don't even know. So what we do is, can we study your model? Can we observe you for a period of time and see how you do what you do? You have a child who is confident of himself, a child who can speak his mind, a child who knows who he is. Is no longer moved. I mean, and you have some of those children in school, they are not moved by whatever you guys are saying. They are so entrenched in their values and they are positive peer pressure by themselves, right? And so that is how you check. When your child gets into a strange environment and your child can insist on who he is, irrespective of the environment, that is a child that has been properly raised. Many of our children, I mean, I have a lot of Nigerian parents who send their children to Canada, and the next thing they are complaining to me, praise, come and bill me. I say, what's happening? I say, my child is already smoking marijuana or is smoking cannabis. And they say, Canada is changing their children. I say, Canada is not changing your child. Canada is revealing the level of work done. Canada is the examination for the level of parenting that you have done over time. So this is your report card, because a good seed does not become bad overnight. That your child started smoking marijuana in 12 months is proof that the environment has created the platform for your child, for the real child to come out. So that is your report card. Let us deal with it and let us find what we need to do. So yes, there may not be hard and fast rule, but if you can get a child to become the best version of himself without his esteem being compromised and his ferocious curiosity especially, then I think you have done a good job.
Wow. All right. So a lot of questions are coming. So leading up, still on that question, one of my clients shared this with me. He said his white English boss said that as long as his children don't end up in prison, then his job as a parent is done.
Well, it's not wrong. It's not wrong, actually, because I don't deal with right and wrong. That's what it says. But question is, what is the potential of a child? Success is not what we have done. Success is what we have done compared to what we could have done, right? And many of us, our potential is bigger than what we are doing, right? Yep. But the bias in our head, the rules that has been placed in our head is, in fact, I said to people that our generation has been totally messed up, right? Maybe the next generation we have more hope because there are rules, there are things you want to do, there are some religious rules in your head that is stopping you from doing many things you want to do. You are afraid of speaking your mind, and that's how you know that you have been captured. You know what is right. The person is doing what is wrong, but you can't tell him that what he's doing is wrong because either he's older than you or you are afraid that he has some anointing and blah, 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 blah. These are the issues. So that guy that is saying that as long as his children is the lowest level of existence, right? Yeah. And also saying that because your child can actually go to prison and come out, and, I mean, by his definition, Joseph in the Bible is a failure because he went to prison, but the prison was his pathway to the palace, right? So he doesn't know what is, I don't want to say he doesn't know what he's talking about, but it's fine for him. But because you see, there are three categories. There are parents who are raising the owners of the industry and the systems. Then there are parents raising the captains of the industry and the systems. But there are a third category raising the workers and the hustlers within the system. So wherever you are positioning your child is your choice and you are fine. But you need to know that the captains of the industry are at the mercy of the owners of the industry. But the hustlers are at the mercy of the captains and the owners. So do you want to be raise a child who is the owner of an industry or a child who is a victim of the industry, right? The choice is yours at the end of the day.
All right, keep your questions coming. I'm going to take some of them. I would ask some of mine. So, Praise, we've got one there that says, how can I understand my child's temperament and learning style? He's 6 years old.
Okay, there are psychometry you can take that will, I mean, almost immediately you can feel it for your children and it will show you exactly what their temperament is. I have a material called Out of the Box Parenting. Coaching program is on my website, praiseway.com/courses. You will find it there. If you take it, there is a particular part of it that takes you through how to run the assessment and how to place your child, right? So yes, you can actually spot it. But basically, if you have a child who is a natural leader, who questions everything, right? That's most likely an intimidating Homer. If you have a child who is looking for socks, looking for shoe, a child who comes back home, you say, do you have assignment? He says, I don't have assignment, but on Monday morning, he remembers that he has assignment. He begins to cry on his way to school. That's a creative convertible. If you have a child who locks himself up, right, who is very slow at starting anything, but when he starts, he's going to finish, that's a dependable truck. But if you have a child who reports everyone, if you even say, let us do a surprise party for daddy, he goes to meet daddy and say, daddy, don't tell anybody, we are doing a surprise party for you. That's a systematic fault, right? So there are ways to find out by observation, but to be doubly sure, you can run the after assessment on your children and you can get the accurate result.
We'll get out of the box parenting and you guys will get that information. Let's go to the next question there. How do you correct the mistakes made already? For example, if my children have already passed the ages you shared.
You can, I mean, I don't know what age your child is. If your child is already 19, you can go to them. Like I said, from 19, you are a technical advisor. A technical advisor has influence. It's just that your influence is not totally strong, but you can bypass conscious resistance to still influence them. The first thing I might need you to do is to go and apologize to them. Let them know that you did the best you could with what you knew. You are not a bad parent, right? And let them know that you have new information. Have we asked ourselves, your mother that slapped you, beat you when you were growing up, have you noticed the way she deals with your children, right? What is it that grandmothers and grandfathers know that now makes them not to beat grandchildren the way they beat their children as Africans, right? So you need to learn to apologize for whatever you've done wrong to your children and let them know that you want to find a space in their lives if they give you permission, right? And it can start with what, let them teach you how to dance, let them teach you some things, you know, that can help you, right? That way you can now begin to balance their perspective, but you can work with them as a cheerleader and a technical advisor, yeah.
That's amazing. So if parents are, I mean, I know you're pressed for time, I'm also pressed for time, so I'm trying to get through a lot of these questions. If parents are separated and have different parenting styles, how do they co-parent without conflicting information, especially when the communication is not cordial and civil between the parents?
Okay, I have a material, maybe this person needs to reach me privately. I have I treated co-parenting for like, I have an 11 episode documents, research on co-parenting that can help you. Because what people don't know is that within the confines of co-parenting, the star player is the child, not the two of you. What the two of you couldn't resolve was what's destroyed the marriage. There are two movies there. The movie called Marriage has broken down in divorce. The location for marriage is different from the location for co-parenting. That's another movie with a different cast, with a different script. The main cast in the movie of co-parenting is the child and not the two of you. So there are ways to midwife that process, to bypass conscious resistance. And when you are dealing with someone who is very difficult, there are also ways to deal with that person. I mean, there are so many things you need to learn in there. The personality of the person you are dealing with, how to write the script, how to agree, how to align, how to get a mediator, and blah, 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 blah. All kinds of things that I've treated. So if you reach me privately or you send me a mail, princefowowe@gmail.com, I'll tell you, I'll take you through that process, and you can have it. It's all video. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So, guys, remember, send in your questions as I see them. I would share them. Quickly, what's your definition of an exceptional child? An
exceptional child is a child who has mastered himself and can express himself fully in service to God and humanity. That's basically an exceptional child. There's what we call the gene in us, which makes a child genius. Every child is a genius. You only need to find the gene in them, you know. So what your job is to protect. That's why your job is to guard. It's not to impose anything on the child. So when you can guard your child in a way that can fully express himself, that's an exceptional child. Wherein his truth is his truth. I mean, you have supported him, that he can stand his own anywhere he gets to, and he can freely give of himself, releasing his potential. I think you have done a good job at that, and I think that's the next. So it doesn't have to be, you know, a Mark Zuckerberg, but wherever he is, whatever world he's interfacing with, you can show he's giving his best consistently without conflict control, without violating his values, right? I think that's just fine.
Cool. I think what this person is trying to say is, if you're a single parent and your child has gone way out of what society calls wrong, what can be done to correct such a child, now a young adult?
Okay, I have a material called Handling an Erring Child. It's also in princefowowe.com/courses. Handling an Erring Child is a 7-step process on what you need to do. Now, oftentimes what you call a bad child don't depend on society's society is not consistent. They are like fans in a football match. When you play well, they say who. When you play badly, they say, I mean, they are all subjective. Now, you need to understand that what you need to do with your child is to separate your child from his bad behavior, right? And you need to understand that your child is the plant. The bad behavior is the weed. What you do with weed is unwanted, but you need to carefully weed it out, or else you will weed out the plant. So you don't attack the plant, you attack the weed, right? And there's a process to that. So many of us, in fact, data has shown that an average parent use 3 positive words on their children compared to 17 negative words of criticism in a day.
Yeah.
Right. So if you flip the script, many of you reduce your child to his bad behavior. So let's say your child is smoking. All you now see in that child is smoke. He's greeting you, you are no longer seeing that. He's cooking, you are not seeing that. He's still going to school, you are not seeing that. All you are fixated on is, and whatever you focus on, you magnify. What you magnify, you exaggerate. Yep. Right? So many of us have exaggerated the challenges in the life of our children. So that solution helps you understand what to do step by step and how to win back your child. And we have gotten a lot of results with that. So you can get that course and it will help you.
Wow, good stuff. We got another question there. How do you interact with a child who feels that you did not seek his consent before putting him forward in an activity that would benefit him or her?
You need to understand that your child is a human being with emotions, right? Right. Put yourself in that same position, right? You know, imagine if Coach Aaron just comes to hijack you from where you are right now and say you must go for a program. Won't you ask, Coach, why are you not asking for my consent? Many of us don't respect the emotion of our children. We just think we know it all. There's a way to prepare a child for what can benefit him, right? And especially you need to understand that you're dealing with Generation Z. This is not Generation X and Y. In fact, after Generation Z, there's another generation called Generation Alpha, right? The way they love to be talked to is totally different. They love collaborative decision making. So you want to present it and say, wow, what do you think about this? I found this, and these are the benefits. You need to learn to sell. Selling must be a skill for everyone. Go and take a course in selling, right? Because if you sell it properly, your child will buy it and it will be his decision or a joint decision. But when you think this is what he should do, what if the child doesn't want to do that, right? So don't force things on them, present it and let them take a decision or jointly take that decision so that they don't sabotage it.
Good stuff. So I mean, I've known you for years. I've done stuff with you. We're still working on a few parenting programs, especially, and family programs, especially here in the West. And I know you found a lot on. Actually, let me take questions. I think I saw something on sibling rivalry. Let's do that quickly. This person is saying, yeah. Can you touch on? Yeah, how can parents avoid
problem in our world today is sibling rivalry? In fact, I tell people, you don't have to agree with me. The greatest crisis on this planet is sibling rivalry. And the biggest sibling rivalry is the rivalry between Ishmael and Isaac, which has created...
Makes sense, yes.
It's a sibling rivalry,
yeah,
right? But we all need to agree. And you see, it starts from the way you and your wife relate with yourself.
Yeah. Right?
Once your relation with your wife is friendly and cordial, your children will, naturally, their relationship with themselves will be cordial. If you and your wife are protective of each other, your children will protect themselves. But when you and your wife, you are throwing yourself under the bus, you realize that your children will take after as well. And once you don't have preferential treatment, the moment you begin to show preference for a child at the expense of the other, we have seen children who have killed their brothers simply because they feel, especially when you have a first child and the gap between your first child and the second child is not so much. The first child is center of attention before, and now you are pregnant for the other child. Naturally, when you give back to the second, you leave the first child, and that child feels the second child is a threat who has come to take shine of him. The 9-month period of the pregnancy is a process of preparing the first child for what is coming and to take that new child that is coming as a sibling, as a friend, as someone he needs to protect. You need to prepare that child. And in raising the second child, you must not let go of the first child. He must be part of the process. Once he's part of the process, he will learn to protect his sibling naturally. But what many of us do is we are insensitive, and it's not because we want to do it, but because we don't know. We are insensitive to the emotion of the first child. We are not asking him questions. We just leave him because we now pay attention on the new child. And usually that's what causes. So your system has to be spot on, and you must know exactly what you're doing.
That is so good. I mean, and that means that's really why it's important for us to get educated on these matters. I mean, I would never have answered that question that way. And that's just the value of actually reading up and getting information and asking people who know better. Good stuff. Someone is asking here, what do you do when a child requests to join an activity after they stay on their and now changes their mind? And this happens very often. Do you give into their yo-yo mind, making up all the time? I think there
are so many things in there. Your child may be developing a pattern of not completing tasks. And you need to be careful there. That child may need coaching. Because a lot of Generation Z, once they don't have resilience. Once they encounter what looks like a problem, they want to give up. It's your responsibility to now coach them to finish it. In my study of Bill Gates, his father said that there were activities they made Bill do that he didn't like, including long-term, right? In fact, they said they made him complete it. And that has come in handy for him right now, right? Charity. The mother was into charity. The mother will make him be the distributor of what they are giving the community. And you can see how heavy Bill Gates is on charity right now. So somehow your job is to make them see the pleasure, right, that comes at the end of what looks like pain. And that is where your job as a coach, I will even recommend that every parent should take a course on coaching, or hire a coach for your family, right? I think it's high time we began to do that. You need to hire a coach that can work with you and place them on retainership around the year, because that's the job of a coach, to now begin to get into your child's mind, to help them on the, I was having a discussion with my daughter before I came on, and she was telling me, I was asking her about her class today, and she said, that a math was difficult. I said, no. Was it difficult or you have not mastered it? Oh, then he said that I have not mastered it. It's not that it's difficult. Because I said, nothing is difficult. It's just that you have not mastered it. He said, Daddy, you're correct. So I said, what are you going to do? He said, when my brother comes, I'm going to make him take me through it, and I think I'll master it. I said, you've always done it. You're a genius, right? And we laughed about it, right? So some is difficult because remember that they love to play. So whatever looks like work or is becoming monotonous, or is not fun-driven, they want to run away from it. But your job is to coach them to embrace because sometimes greatness is embracing what you don't like to create what you love. So you need to help them, if possible, go with them there, urge them on, cheer them on, do it with them, help them understand the benefits. If you do that, it will help them. And in the other side is, if they have chosen one and they are broken away, they want to choose another one, you must have an agreement that they're going to complete that. Because you can't just be throwing money into the wind, right? You need to have that agreement. And that's why parenting is not, you don't have to become loose to say, so is this what you want? Have you researched it? Is this what you want? Okay, so do we have an agreement that you're going to finish it, even if you don't like it at the end of the day? Once that agreement is done, document it. You must learn to teach your children to sign up for an agreement and is binding on them. You are teaching them a pattern, because patterns are predictors of future. Once you begin to allow them, I don't like it, oh yeah, leave it. Someday, and in 1 year, they don't like it. They're on their way out. It's because we have not built a pattern of resilience, and because we have created an utopian world where everything is rosy. No, you need to strike that balance. And I think you need to help your child. So what I do, for example, I create an entry and an exit for every activity. So for example, when my children went lay in their bed, we sat down one day, and I said to them, the starting of sleeping is when you go have your bath and wear your pajamas, but sleeping does not end until you lay your bed. The end of sleeping is when you lay your bed. The eating starts from when you dish the plate, the food, but it ends when you wash your plate. So with that, the moment I did that, in 1 week, they mastered it. So my daughter came to my room one day, it was 6:30 a.m., we're preparing to go to work, and our bed was not laid. And she looked at the two of us, Dad and Mom, are you still sleeping? And we were looking at ourselves, because your bed is not laid and we have to quickly lay it. Your children will master and they become policemen. Don't now say, what right do you have to correct me? If you do it right and you obey it and you fall under the rule, they will also abide by the rule, and it becomes a way of life for them.
That is amazing. So that's actually modeling the achievement you want your children to adopt. Yes. If not, and then it also speaks of accountability. You're also accountable to them, which is really good. All right, so let's look at the school of thoughts that will tell you that old parenting ways was a good time for morality, and that morality had higher values in those days compared to these times of lax parenting. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so. What do you mean by morality? In our days and time, there were no internet, but we still managed to read out that the sexy guy, Lolly in Nigeria, the Maxine, and what have you. People got pregnant in our age and time. People watch pornography, blue film, that was what we called it. So it's the thing is, there was no internet, so we didn't know what was happening in other towns. Yeah. I mean, same sex was happening in many boarding houses when we're young. Yep. So what has just happened is internet has made it possible for everything to be brought to fore. So it's just been brought to our awareness. It's the magnifier of our strengths and weakness, and that's why it's now easy to see. So I don't think morality has changed over time. It's never been better. If you're a student of history, check the Greek Empire, right? There was pederasty. Pederasty was you attach a boy to a mentor, and the mentor can sodomize the boy, right? There was a festival for pennies in the old Greek Empire. So you had kings in Africa who will meet someone else's wife and they say the king has placed leg on this one. So immorality has been, it's been with us forever, you know. So it's just a matter, and within all what we call looseness, there are still children who are not doing it. There are still people who are virgins. There are still people, you know, whose standard of morality is still high. So again, it's how you have built your system and how you have the values you have subscribed to at the end of the day. All these things will always be. It's not going to get better. You know, as new technology comes, it comes with its own demons as well. You know, so it's not, let's not pretend, because Nigerian parents will say that they were disciplined. And I say, if you were disciplined, a disciplined people will produce a disciplined society. If the society is not disciplined, then you were domesticated and you mistook it for discipline. It's not the same, you know. So let's not pretend. We wrote love letters as teenagers or as preteens, dosology. Yeah, I hope you are fine. We wrote all those things as children, you know, and there was no internet. So how did we learn it? So it's always been here. Internet has just democratized things and made it possible to magnify everything and blow everything up. And it's now easily accessible. They don't have to hide anymore.
Wow, that's good stuff. So let's look at all this non-yelling, which is something you talked about. Non-yelling, which is kind of how we were all raised. Non-smacking, non-yelling approach to child rearing. How does that? So the Christian who is listening is saying, well, the Bible says, sparing the rod, you spoil the child. What's the balance? Also, we as human beings, we've evolved from generations that have included punishment in rearing up or raising up our children. And some would argue that we haven't turned out that bad at all. So why should we stop that why should we stop that form of discipline, non-yelling, non-smacking approach? If we have not turned out badly, who are the people leading our nations? Are we the one leading the nation? Are we the prime ministers in the UK? Are we Donald Trump? Who are we? When we begin to say we have not turned out badly, that's the problem. Because when it comes to the global scheme of things, we are not in charge of anything. We are not in control of anything. We need to understand this. And what was the opportunity cost of what was done to us? It took our power away. We have no confidence. These are the things we need to begin to talk about. Yeah. Now, I would say this. When people quote Bible did not say spare the rod. Bible says what the Bible says. Yeah. It was not even Jesus that said it. It was Solomon, right? So you need to understand the wisdom of Solomon, which is the Jewish saying. And so it's like a proverb in the Yoruba. It's not the word of God, as it were. But let's even take it as that. It said, bound in the heart of a child is foolishness. It didn't say bound in the heart of the child. Not an indefinite article, a child. So it means not every child has foolishness in their mind. Then it said the rod of correction. It didn't now specify what the rod of correction was. It didn't say it's cane. It didn't say it's belt. Word of correction to a people who have never experienced slavery can be communication, can be negotiation. But rod of correction to a people who have experienced slavery is slap, is yelling, is beating, is all. The question is, do you want to correct a behavior, or you want to punish a child, or you want to inflict pain? Two different things, right? And if discipline is discipleship, so let's take, for instance, you won a soul for Christ, and you brought him to church, and the guy used to smoke, and after 6 months, he went back to smoking. Do you slap him? Do you yell? What do you do? Is it not that you tell him that, okay, you know, don't do it anymore? God, that's what. So many of us are patient, and we are nice to outsiders, but we are mean to our children, right? So we don't have and we need to admit that many of us, we have not learned communication. We don't know communication. We know how to talk, but we have not learned communication, because you need to, it was Mike Murdoch who said that trapped in the mind of everyone is a king and a fool. The one you speak to is one that responds to you. I even say that trapped in every child is an Obama and Osama. The one you pay attention to is one that comes out eventually. So it is it's your responsibility to speak to the Obama inside your child and speak to the king in him. If it's your child will listen to you. He will not, go astray and now wait till you beat him. Because if you check the way you beat your child, it's because you have not created a perceptual code. Now, question is, Prince Harry, Prince Edward, were they slapped? Were they beaten? Have they done badly? Are they not the one ruling UK till today? One has moved to Canada now. He's still ruling from there.
You know, so we need to understand that there is a way to groom a child. Bill Gates' father said, I never beat my son. Elon Musk's father said, I never beat my child. Mark Zuckerberg's father said, I never beat my child. There must be something they know, right? So we need to admit that this beating business has not produced us as world changers, global shapers. You know, what is the opportunity cost of this beating? Because we just love to beat, because we were beaten, right? So we were beaten for spilling water at age 4, which is expected behavior for a child at 4, right? So we need to step it down a little bit. I love to review what is not working and embrace what is working, right? So I engage my children, and trust me, we are very close enough, and they tell me things, you know, that you'll be wondering, I mean, what's happening here, right? And so once we rent a space in the mind of a child, and we can hold a child emotionally accountable, we have won that child.
That's beautiful. Guys, keep your questions coming. So let's look at, I'm trying as much as possible to come at the moment from the perspective of the Christian and how we have misinterpreted a lot of scriptures in how we raise our children. You know, we use fear, and I know this is something you speak against the Lord, the place of using fear to motivate our children. But in the African palliative, a lot of times we use fear a lot to motivate our children. And your typical Christian would say, even God, our ultimate Father in heaven, makes reference to both love and fear and reverence of him. We even teach our children that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So, can you just speak into that? Is there no place for creating that fear, which is what our parents did? Our parents and dads especially. So when dad is coming, everybody runs, because that's like, you understand wisdom.
You see, the problem is this: you need to check our history. Where are we coming from? We are coming from, before Christianity, we were coming from a background of idol worship, where we served a god like Shango, Ogun, Amadioha. These were gods that they were unapproachable. You couldn't touch them. Shango spat fire from his mouth. You couldn't say, oh, Shango, I love you. You couldn't talk about love with him. It was fear. It was fiery. That's why when Christianity came and God was introduced to us, we saw God through the prism and the screen of Shango and Amadioha. That's why in a typical Nigerian and African church, when they talk about God as the unkillable killer, check the body language of the people praying. They begin to manifest like Ogun and Shango and Amadioha. There's simply one power that comes on them. It's as if they are gyrating. But when you talk about God of love, you see them, they calm down. They don't even take it seriously, because we don't understand love. There are 2 ways to relate with God. There is a way you can love God, that is, love forbids you from committing sin. If you love someone dearly, you don't sin against them, because fear cannot, even God did not succeed with fear with Israelites. He did not. All the 10 commandments, it did not work. And Jesus reduced them to 2. Love thy Lord thy God with all your heart and your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. That the energy of love is what we need for our world to come together and win. That if we master love, then love itself has the power to heal. It has the power to transform. It has the power to make things go around. Fear cannot achieve that, right? So we need to get to the point where we need to admit that historically we are at a disadvantage. We didn't have a father. I never saw my father hug my mom. I only saw them hug once a year when we cross to New Year, crossover. And it's a 10 seconds transaction. So how do I now know how to look? I didn't see them show affection. So how am I supposed to understand love? My father shouted on us for everything. So we need to understand that many of us need to learn love again. And once we learn love, we will begin to interact. Love is a currency. If you begin to interact with the energy of love, you realize that your life is better, you are calmer, you raise children who are confident of themselves and who are non-judgmental. And I think you will have lived a perfect life if you achieve that.
All right, let's take the question on screen. How come children brought up in the same home, children brought up in the same home under the same parents, I believe, circumstances turn out differently. In fact, some very differently. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, children can turn out differently because the template for raising them are totally different. And in most cases, there are things happening that you are not aware of. So you can have your first child, you know, a lot of first children in Africa suffer because their parents place a lot of expectation on their shoulder. So they are usually the specimen in the parenting experimental lab of their parents. That by the time the second child now comes, they have used the first child to master parenting. And usually the second child now looks like it's better. And they begin to say things, you know, they were not raised under the same circumstances, not under the same age, not under the same template. You need to understand that. And in some cases, something could have happened to one of them, maybe child sexual abuse. You brought in an uncle from the village, you know, and a careless touch, and that child turns, and that child may never tell you because he has been placed under a threat by that uncle that he should never talk. A lot of children are suffering right now because they don't want their parents to die based on the threat that they were subjected to. So there are a lot of things that could have happened. I can't tell you this exactly what it is, but if you interview the child, you will realize that something went wrong. And so sometimes maybe the first child came at a time that things were rosy. By the time the second child comes, economy has changed, stress has come in. So that child will definitely turn out differently. To you, things have not changed, but a lot has changed, right? Because you can't be your judge and your advocate at the same time, right? So if you place someone around your life to begin to observe, they begin to tell you the changes, and we can even change as human beings based on experience, environment, and you know, based on so many other factors.
So I know you're doing a series at the moment, and you're looking at the study of, and you've talked about it, you're looking at the study of certain great people who turned out very well. You're looking at also family studies, parental studies of different nations and things like that. One of the things that struck me in one of your thoughts was when your study of Alexander the Great, and you said something around that being a benchmark for good parenting. And for those of us who are people of growth, we understand the place of studying, and not just studying and making your life the curriculum of your evolution itself. But it can also be said that it can almost come across like you equate the turning out of great people like Alexander the Great to really good parenting. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, even Alexander the Great, you know, what I study is the intentionality that you see, the life of a child is in your hand. You can make that child into anything. Alexandra the Great mother, you know, started telling him that it was not his biological father that gave birth to him. Began to tell him that it was the gods that impregnated her. So she believed that she had immaculate conception. So she began to tell Alexander the Great that you belong to God. You are a God yourself, because the blood that flows in your vein is a God. So that guy had a sense of greatness from childhood. Eventually, the father looked for the best mentor for him, and they looked for the wisest man in the Greek Empire, and they found Socrates. It was Socrates they handed him over to. Socrates taught him about vision, taught him about how to conquer the world, and you can see at 30-something, he had conquered the entire world. Even though there were downsides to it, and we have, I mean, the reason for those downsides to what happened to him, you know, which was as a result of abuse as well, right? Is to say that you can be intentional. I mean, how many people can go to Harvard and they will pull out, and their parents will be happy with it? Elon Musk, for example, was born in South Africa. He went to University of Pretoria, but as he began to study, he said he realized that what he wanted to do with his life, the environment in South Africa will not support it. And he told his father, if I stay in South Africa, I will not fulfill my potential. And his father argued with him, and the boy took off to Canada. From Canada, he found his way to the US. The rest is history. But his father said that there was a training when Elon Musk was, I think, 9, that training was 75 rand. It was a lot of money, but he said they paid for it so that his son can begin to understand, you know, the concept of flying and the concept of, you know, conquering the world. He said because he spotted the potential in him early. You know, so it's about intentionality. Bill Gates, we talk about Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. It was something learned from his mother. His mother was the one doing charity, right? So it's about being intentional to realize that you can script a child to become anything depending on the script. The question is, do you have a script for your child?
That's really good. So let's talk about, guys, you can still send in your questions. We talk about parents who are arrogant if they do not make the efforts to seek out and learn good parenting skills. Where are we? I mean, I hear you on reading and studying, and which is what I tell clients anyway. Where exactly do we anchor good parenting from? Because if we look back even into our history, even in biblical times, we don't exactly have good parent role models to do.
We don't.
Yeah. So
we don't.
Where can we actually have model? Where can we see such models that one can say, hey, this is a good parent model?
Okay, you see, there are models everywhere. The problem is this, and this is the challenge. An average Christian, if he sees a good model that works, that is not from Christianity, he will not likely take it. As far as it's concerned, it's anti-God, and that's the arrogance that has stripped us from benefiting from humanity. God is the God of all flesh. Are we saying that he cannot express himself in another format that we don't know about? Yeah. This is the biggest problems that we have. I learn from every and every. I'm very, very open-minded, right? And so when people see some of the books I read, they see the kind of travels I do, to go and check. Once I see something is working, I want to know why is it working. I'm doing a study of every family life in every nation of the world right now. And I'm finding out that some of the most peaceful nations on the planet are nations that Buddhism is their religion. Yeah. And I'm trying to find out what are the ethos of Buddhism. Why is it that this is totally different from the nations where Islam and Christianity hold sway? These are the questions I'm asking. That you see, systems are not emotional, and systems work all the time, and systems can be replicable. Principles are universal. We need to understand that. There are people who are living out biblical principles who are not Christians. They don't even know they exist in the Bible, right? Because you can't tell me it's the devil that is working in Dubai to create what Dubai UAE is creating. You can't tell me it's the devil. You can't, right. And I'm not going to listen to you. If you say it's the devil, create your own. You have not created your own, and you are saying it's the devil. Right, so I understand models, and that's why I look out for models that work to say, okay, so this marriage has failed. Why did it fail? I want to ask questions. This one has succeeded. Why did it succeed? I want to ask questions. Oh, this person has raised an icon who has defined an industry. How did he do it? How did someone rise from South Africa and Elon Musk is like #1 brain in the world right now? The guy just keeps coming up with new things, and you are wondering, how is this guy able to do it? I'm even checking his marriage to say, okay, with all these things, his marriages are not working. Why? And because his father and mother separated at some point. So what is the role of their separation on his own relationship? I'm checking that. See, if we can question things and we can ask questions and observe, the Bible says, who is blind but my servant? That the one who is likely not going to see anything is the servant of the Lord, because we have a sense of entitlement, right? So if we observe nature, we will find answers, because day unto day utters speech. Nature speaks, but many of us are not willing to. Whatever doesn't carry Jesus, we don't think is from God. And that's where we fail, and that's where we miss out from the good things of life.
Let's stay there a bit, only because those are the kind of waters I like to swim in for the sake of controversy. Why do you think that's a problem? Why is it that, especially for those of us as Christians, the moment it does not have Jesus in it, we begin to think that something, that's why you begin to hear us say things like it must be new age and all that kind of stuff. we begin to throw around, and for someone like me, the moment something challenges me, at least I want to know why it challenges me. Why am I being challenged with it? So if you could, and that's because you're somebody I respect your thinking, and you think along on so many of these kind of subjects. Why do you think we have that problem? Because for me, if I can get the people in my community, in the Thrivers community, to actually be people who are awake, to begin to get their thinking into the ways they do things, then at least we can start saving and helping our generation, community per community.
I think we are just confused, Aaron. We are very confused. We are confused in the sense that, I mean, you and I are pastors' children for starters, you know. So I tell people that I don't pastor a church is by choice. It's not for lack of calling. You know, I think I can do better. I've done all kinds. I was born in the church. A lot of people don't study church history, so they don't understand too many things, right? So they think Abraham is a Christian. They think Moses was a military leader.
Jesus was not a Christian.
He was not. Jesus was not a Christian. You know, so these are things that an average person in church doesn't even understand, right? And so when they don't understand those basics, you ask yourself, where are you going to start from? Where are you even going to start from? So I don't try to get into those kind of conversations because your results should prove greater work shall you do. Who are the people doing greater work? Mark Zuckerberg is doing greater work. Bill Gates is doing greater work. Elon Musk is doing greater work. You are not even doing the work. You are doing lesser work. And you just think that you can just open your mouth and so people are not, they are afraid of the truth. That's what I found out. We are afraid of the truth, you know. And so I have said that if Jesus comes to our world now, we cannot follow him based on the model we are practicing. So we are studying Jesus through the prism of Pharisees and Sadducees. Because so there's an activity I do when I consult for churches. I ask them to create two churches, the Church of Jesus and the Church of Pharisees. So I ask them, who are their students? What is their style of teaching? You know, how do they measure their result? How do they handle their people? How do they perceive their people? By the time they answer all the questions, I ask them, based on your answers, does your church look more like the Church of Jesus or the Pharisees? All the churches I've consulted for, it looked more like Pharisees. Because we didn't understand this Jesus. You know, it was an outlier. It was a trespasser. He says the kingdom of heaven is like a trespasser. Who is a trespasser? A rule breaker. Someone who can question status quo. We are not comfortable asking questions. Meanwhile, this Christianity was built on spirited debates. In fact, the concept of church, ecclesia, I traveled to Greece to go and study it because that was where it came from. Ecclesia is not a religious movement. It was a political movement. It was a group of people that when Greek conquers a territory, they establish ecclesia to begin to colonize them, to think and talk like Greek. That was where Jesus spotted it and he said, I will build my own ecclesia that will begin to think. But our Christianity does not promote thinking. So we are comfortable when things don't work. We don't question it. We are comfortable with it. And that's why we can't grow. Any movement that cannot promote thinking will lose out. And that's why we are losing out. I did a project for the Catholic Church in Nigeria, which is called Better Parenting Nigeria. I was actually develop a curriculum. Now, I was engaging the Catholic guys from Vatican, and they said something to me. They said, when something happens, separates, we do not pray first. He said the first question we ask, that was when I respected the Catholic movement because they are very scientific. He said the first question we ask is, has it happened before in history? So we begin to dig deep. When we check, if it had happened before, how did they handle it? He says, we now look at how they handle it. We now see how we can contextualize it to the current moment and we solve the problem. So I asked them, what if you don't now find it in history? They say, we now look around. Has anyone had the same problem, whether Christian, anybody, that we now go and learn? So I said, if you can't find it, he said, that's when we pray, because we now know that God wants to bring something new. Profound thoughts, right? So we need to, this gospel is a gospel of faith and reason. We love the faith, we don't love the reason. So that's why we can't think that we have an entire, I told someone, I said, one person in the place of policy is more powerful than 1 million people doing praise night for 48 hours. One person in the place of policy. And that was why when COVID came and the politician says everybody shut down, we had no voice. We couldn't do otherwise. It would have been a good moment for us to come out and say, okay, let us go to the isolation centers and cure everybody to prove the supremacy of what we truly believe in. We didn't do that. We didn't do that. So what are we talking about?
We came out to fight.
So what are we talking about? So we need to get to that point where we begin to ask questions that human beings should ask. God said, come, let us reason together. You need thinking to reason. You need to question to reason. And Jesus was asking questions at 12. He was questioning religious leaders, questioning. They didn't say he was rude. He was questioning them. They were listening and they marveled at his wisdom. The enemies of God's new movement are the custodians of the old movement because they think they have seen all about God, right? Orthodox did it, they didn't succeed. Pentecostals are doing it right now. We need to understand that the mission must remain. Methodology, we always change. A new methodology is upon us. Are we ready to embrace it? Or we're going to fight it? If we fight it, we still won't win because God has moved into the future. So can we spot the voice of God in the mouth of a Buddhist? Can we spot the voice of God in the mouth of a Muslim? If we agree that God made everybody, then we now say God cannot activate a human being he has made to do anything he needs to do. Then it means that the God we talk about is the God that we have held this remote control. And I love, if you have seen the movie PK, the guy, Amakan said something. He said there are two gods. The one that made us in his image. He said that one we don't know him. He said, but we have another one. The one we have made in our image. He said that one is petty, is very, very emotional. He readily meets the rich, but he forsakes the poor. He said that is the one we know. Is the God in our image. He said that's the one we worship. So we all need to find the God who has made us in his image and align with him. That is the way to win. And we must bring thinking into this Christianity, or else even our children will lose them if we are not careful.
You know what you're saying as we begin to round up is so valid, because how I even got fully entrenched in this journey of coaching and thinking was my very first coach. My very first coach was a Muslim woman. I was on a course in Milan. I was on a marketing course in Milan. And this lady looked at me. We had an exercise. And she looked at me and said, she said to me, you are afraid to call yourself a guru. And I said, what does that mean? Who are you? And she said, look, I see you. She said, you are one of the few people on the surface of the earth who are actually gifted in quite a lot of things. But I can see that you are afraid to accept it and actually embrace who you really are. And that led to a 12-month coaching relationship I had with that woman. You know what? Wow. And this woman, with her turban and everything like that, we worked for 13 months actually. It shocked me. I used to tell people, my experience with that lady in 1 year, no pastor, and I'm a pastor's child, no pastor that I've served under or worked with ever spoke greatness into my life like that woman did in a whole year. I would come up with some decisions in my coaching sessions, and this woman would remind me and say, but you are a man of faith. A Muslim woman pushed me more to my faith ever than potential Christian leaders that I've worked with. She would always remind me, she would say, but I don't think you will do this because I know you're a man of faith. I know you're a man of God. So how does this decision you're making, how does it sit with your faith? And I will recalibrate again in those seasons. No, I still say it again, everyone, no pastor, no person I've served, not even my parents, ever spoke greatness to me like that one I worked with for 13 months, and she cost a lot. My first coach was a Muslim woman and was one of the freest seasons of my life that brought me into that consciousness of who I truly am.
God is at work, Aaron, everywhere. I see humanity. I see man made in God's image. And what that has helped me do is to reduce me to love. I can literally spot God anywhere, you know, and what that has done is it has totally changed my life, that I deal on the platter of love. I'm not non-judgmental, you know, I know exactly what I believe in, you know, but I'm able to trade with compassion. And you see, this arrogance of we can't learn from anyone, you know, is going to destroy us in many ways, you know, because if you look at everyone leading the rest of the world, they don't even believe what we believe, but they are doing the work of our Father. So if our Father has made them in his image and they are acting like that, our response should be to produce superior solutions. That we can't produce superior solutions is a wake-up call to say, is God manifesting in another dimension that we need to pay attention to? And the thing about God is, if you release yourself, he will use you whichever way you want to be used. So you are right. I have met people in my journey, all kinds of people, you know, and I hear them and I hear the voice of God from what they are saying. and I can recognize it. Yeah.
I have a friend of mine in the John Maxwell team who I brought to speak to a few clients of mine as we begin to round up. Muslim brother. But my clients walked away from that conversation. Number one, I didn't tell them that he was Muslim, because if I told them he was Muslim, they will shut down. So it was halfway while they were into it, and everybody's typing and saying, oh my God. And I just chipped it on the group. Do you know he's a Muslim? And they're like, yeah, I was suspecting when I saw the this on his head, when I saw that, I was suspecting. I said, but can you imagine? He is speaking more love than we Christians. His revelation, this guy, his revelation of love. You almost have to check. Are we not reading? My clients are sending me messages. Say, he sounds like you. I said, are we not reading the same Bible? His revelation of love was just amazing, you know. And it's these divides that we really need to break down. I mean, you and I can go. It's always amazing to pick your brain, and I'm committed to bringing you in here regularly so that we can begin to change some of these mindsets. At least week by week, community by community, and I'm going to put something intentional and bring brains like you, just so that we can begin to attack. And the thing about you is, and that's why I didn't want to introduce you as a parenting coach. Praise is not just a family guy. There's absolutely no level of conversation you can have with Praise. He's very vast in his learning, in his teaching, and all that. And I appreciate my friendship with you. As we begin to round up, I promise you end by 9 o'clock. Final words and final words from you. What takeaways can people walk away with that they can actually begin to implement and start this journey?
You can't parent effectively if you are not whole yourself. So please find healing wherever you can find it. Don't assume that you are fine. Take courses, pay for courses, pay for coaching, because what many of us have been used to is generalized surveys where they just speak to all of you together. But you won't know how much you have missed out of, how much you have lost until you sit one-on-one with a coach who knows his onions, or you take a course that can change your life. So please, if you find yourself shouting, yelling, these are symptoms that something is gone wrong with your inner man, and you need to attain wellness and wholeness within you. And I always say to people that happiness is creating the heaven within you that makes the hell without lose its power over you. You need to install that heaven. And please, you find healing. The moment you find healing, your children will be the one feeding you back to say, Mommy, something has changed about you. Daddy, something has changed about you. I think we all need healing, because only a wholesome people can actually raise a wholesome generation. And we all need to get to that level. Thank you, everyone, for joining.